Hello and welcome, Angelinos. We thank you for tuning in to yet another brilliant episode of the Galaxy Guy podcast, hosted by Chris Maldonado, a show made by loyal Galaxy fans for loyal Galaxy fans who bleed blue, white and gold. So join us as we talk about the ins and outs, as well as the ups and downs of your favourite team, the one and only, the Los Angeles Galaxy.
Hola y bienvenidos, Angelinos. Welcome back, Galaxy fans, to the Galaxy Guy Show. Como siempre, I'm your host, Chris Maldonado, and we are coming to you tonight through your screens and speakers. Glad to be here, back to talk about our favorite club. You guys know, the one and only, the LA Galaxy. We have a great post-game recap for you. We will, of course, be talking about the LA Galaxy's 3-1 loss at home versus the Dallas Burn this past Saturday. That was the Galaxy's second loss at home this season. Very unfortunate, but it is what it is. And to say that it was disappointing would be a severe understatement, because that was a very disappointing loss. Despite that, it's going to be a good show regardless. We've got you covered as usual with our honest and unbiased takes on everything we saw from the LA Galaxy this past Saturday at home, Dignity Health Sports Park, during 90s night, no less. But as you know, we'll be breaking down the stats for you. We'll provide our analysis, as well as talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of the game. Now, to talk about all that tonight with me, we've got joining me the OG, my co-host, Mr. Casey Cagle himself. You guys know him. How are you doing tonight, Casey?
Doing pretty good. Run on a little bit of low sleep, but feeling pretty good. No sunburn this week. Got to have a little bit of fun at 90s night last night, despite the result. So yeah. I'm here.
How did you enjoy the 90s night, man? How was that?
Twizzle was there. You know, they had all the 90s jams rocking. Montel Jordan. This is how we do it. All the OG LA rap from the 90s was blaring all night. And my dad was there to enjoy the game with me. So had a good time.
Nice, dude. Awesome. Yeah, no, it was good. Look, I saw a ton of retro jerseys out there. The retros and rareras that sold so well, and the LA Galaxy just kind of didn't like that very much. But it's very nice. You know, it's a good throwback. I know the supporter groups had a ton of fun with it. It's always good to have those throwbacks. You know, the fans can reminisce about better days. You know, when the Galaxy didn't completely suck and we actually won trophies consistently. So, you know, it was great. It was a great idea. I hope the Galaxy kind of takes us back to that era a little bit more, you know, through these events. And then maybe, who knows, maybe next season we'll have a 2000s, right?
2010s night would probably be.
2010s night, yeah. Dynasty era. Dynasty night. There you go. Hey, there you go. If the Galaxy PR is watching this, which I doubt, there's your next idea for next season.
Bring some of that winning mentality back, you know?
Yeah. It's far enough now. We're far enough removed from that era to kind of reminisce on it, right?
Yeah.
But no, that's good, man. It's good having you on. Our other co-host, Matt Granger, took the evening off to do more fulfilling things with his life, you know, like spend quality time with his family. You know, instead of being here with us tonight to rant and be all sad and depressed about this soccer game on Saturday, Matt, you really need to get your priorities straight, man. This show is more important. But no, listen, it's good. We gave Matt the night off. He's good. He'll hopefully be back next week. But you know, Casey and I are glad to have you guys on, the listeners, the viewers, joining us tonight here. And we are definitely ready to spit some stats, some facts. So what do you say, Casey? Should we kick it off?
Let's do it.
All right. So listen, first we have to talk about the build-up to this match prior to Saturday's game, right? The Galaxy was coming off a win midweek versus a third division amateur team, the Cal Strikers, that play in the NISA, if I'm not misremembering that. But this is a third division team. It was for the U.S. Open Cup, where the Galaxy struggled to score goals. They had a hard time keeping that 15-year-old kid at bay, you know, and sure, you can say the Galaxy played a lot of their backup guys, some of the bench guys, but these are professional players, you know. Even our bench guys, we had a caliber starting caliber guys out there versus a third division semi-pro team. They're amateurs. These are guys with a day job, and we struggled. So previous to that, the Galaxy had a 1-0 win versus Austin FC, where they also struggled to score a single goal, which you could say is kind of an anomaly, right? That Marco Delgado goal, which we talked about a little bit on the Discord. Casey, I'd like your input on this, dude. Would you call these two wins this last week, would you call them convincing wins, or was there a lot to be...
No. I mean, you can put lipstick on a pig, but it still ain't pretty. And these were some pretty ugly wins, some really scrappy wins against Austin. We, were pretty lucky to walk away with those 3 points. There were a lot of opportunities for Austin to equalize, and they just weren't really on last Sunday. And then again against Cal United strikers, like you said, you're playing against high schoolers and guys who have day jobs, guys that have to be at 0 period the next morning, doing history homework the night after the game. And neither wins were very convincing, and it seems like a lot of the subreddit is pretty angry with our play style at the moment. I saw somebody comment that we can't just keep grinding out these 1-0 wins and expect to make a deep run at MLS playoffs or the MLS Cup for that matter. And, even the US Open Cup, we've got LAFC drawn at the end of this month, and that's going to be a tough game at home. We can't keep playing the way we're playing and expect to beat opposition like that, in such a prestigious competition.
Yeah, and we saw a lot of the same ugly mistakes during the Austin game. I mean, we're going to talk about the mistakes that we saw this past Saturday against Dallas, but we saw a lot of the same dumb, reckless giveaways in the defense, just horrible mistakes. Austin, for some weird reason, forgot how to play soccer those 90 minutes, and they did not capitalize. This is a high-scoring team. They have, 23 goals on the season? This is one of the best, most potent offenses in the league, and they weren't able to capitalize on that, which is a miracle that we were able to beat Dallas 1-0 in Dallas. But I don't know. It's crazy, man. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Austin really wasn't on that night. They've probably got, the deadliest front three in the Western Conference, I think, and if not the league. You've got Fagundes, who's been proven as a goal scorer throughout the years he's been in the MLS, and you have Ethan Finley. It's just, we were lucky they weren't on that night.
Yeah. Now, of course, after this loss versus Dallas this week, the Galaxy was in third place going into this game. Right now, after this loss, they're right smack in the middle of the playoff table, dropping down to fourth, with Austin being right above us and Dallas vaulting up to second place, right below LAFC, who still sits in first place despite losing to Colorado this past weekend. Now, Casey, the Galaxy once again, and we talked about this on the Discord, right? And a lot of people were so angry about this because we've seen it happen time and time again. But the Galaxy once again had a golden opportunity here, just handed to us on a silver platter, right? Not only to steal away 3 points from our bitter Western Conference rivals, Dallas, that have been nipping at our heels in the standings, right? This was an opportunity for us to steal those 3 points from them and get further away from them in the standings, right? And not only that, we had an opportunity to kind of inch a little bit closer to LAFC, close the gap between us and them, right? We would have been 1 point away from them had we won this match. LAFC dropped 3 points this weekend against Colorado. So this was the perfect opportunity for the Galaxy to do that, right? To kill several birds with one stone. All they had to do was just win. But once again, we saw the LA Galaxy kind of poop the bed, right?
Like Amber Heard.
It was her dogs, man.
Pulled an Amber Heard.
Amber Turd, is that? That's what I've been hearing. But no, man. Listen, Casey, I have to ask you, man. This. Would you say that you're surprised, or is this situation just kind of like business as usual for the Galaxy now? I mean, we've seen it happen time and time again. What's your take on this?
Yeah, I think the writing was definitely on the wall with the last two results, and the way we've been playing the last two games before Dallas. Dallas was now unbeaten in 9, unbeaten in 8 before going into this game. Hot to trot in the Western Conference. They've always been, like you said, kind of a rival in the Western Conference, always kind of nipping at our heels. We've met them numerous times in Western Conference finals and semifinals in the past. And, their focus on youth has produced a lot of great players in their lineup. You've got Jesus Ferreira, you've got Paxton Pomical, others. You've got Paul Arriola, who's now in the mix, who almost signed for the Galaxy according to some rumors in the offseason. So it's definitely a very, very bitter loss. And like you said, there was all to play for in the Western Conference. There's still a lot of competition at the top of the Western table. And, we really squandered an opportunity here to kind of seal ourselves in a top position.
It was hilarious. It just came to mind right now. I think it was G-Man on our Discord, on the Galaxy Family Discord, that said this, but it was hilarious. He said, we have progressed against Dallas because if you remember last season, Pepe scored a hat trick against us. And this game, Ricardo Ferreira, or what's this guy's name? The young number 10. Jesus Ferreira only scored a brace. So that you got to call that progress, right? It was just
little by little, baby steps,
Baby steps. Right. But listen, it's kind of crazy to say this, but if you look at the history between the Galaxy and Dallas, this is only our second win against Dallas. That's all competitions, home and away. Only twice have we beaten Dallas in the last 6 years. That's crazy.
That's insane. I didn't even know that.
Since 2015, it's been twice since we've beaten FC Dallas. That's just like across the board, all competitions, home and away. It's insane. Dallas really is a bitter rival in the Western Conference for the Galaxy, and they always, whether we're playing in Dallas, whether they're playing here, they always play up to the Galaxy. Mm-hmm. And this is a team that we cannot discount when it comes to that final push. Right after summer, when teams are making that final push towards the playoffs, Dallas is always a dangerous team. So year after year, when we've seen it, we saw it again in this match. They outplayed us, and they pretty much won the game in the 23rd minute of this match. And frankly, Casey, you know this could have been worse for the Galaxy. They had 2 or 3 chances there that they kind of squandered on breakaways, So we have to kind of count our blessings that this didn't turn into a full shameful blowout for the Galaxy, right?
Absolutely. This could have turned out to be a 5-0, 6-0 game. And we'll get into a lot of the shortcomings and liabilities in our later segments of the show, but it definitely could have been a lot worse.
Yeah.
Not to say the result wasn't bad.
Well, silver lining, right? Well, it could have been 4 or 5. We'll stick with 3. But listen, I've been saying this for a while now on this show, but the playoff race, and it sounds kind of like, redundant to say this, but the playoff race will be a hot one this year. Look at how good the Texas teams are doing right now. Austin is a surprise, right? I mean, they've been doing really good. LAFC will surely make the playoffs. They seem to be kind of just holding firmly to that first spot. And we weren't even counting teams like Seattle and Portland. They got off to a super rocky start this year, but now they are seemingly back to old form. Seattle was dead last a few weeks ago. They were struggling. But, now it seems like since they've won the CCL, they're over that CCL slump. They can now focus 100% on MLS. And you can sure as hell expect them to push hard this summer for a playoff spot like they usually do. I think till this day, they've never missed the playoffs. So, Portland just smashed SKC 7 goals. They smashed SKC. Their DP seemed to be back and swinging. Sebastian Blanco had 2 goals and 2 assists in the game. Just phenomenal player.
On fire.
Expect them to make a hard push for the playoffs. Both teams are currently out of the playoffs. So you can count these teams to make that push. You cannot count out teams like Minnesota. They're a hair away from the playoff line. Nashville, they're a hair away from the playoff line. Hell, you can't even count out SKC because right now they're against the ropes. But SKC is always kind of like a dangerous team, right? So you can't count them out. What I'm saying is this. Things are going to get really hard really soon for the LA Galaxy, and it's going to be really difficult. And these points here in the earlier half of the season are crucial because they're the easier points to get, right? Because right now we're going to start seeing it in the summer. I mean, this month alone, the Galaxy is going to be playing game after game after game after game, very little short rest. We've got older legs out there, older DPs. The Galaxy can't be dropping points, and they are. So as it stands right now, the team with this team composition and the form that we're in, I don't know, Casey. I have to ask you, as it is right now, current form, current composition, where do you see the Galaxy finishing this season? Do you see them comfortably within the playoff line? Do you see them just above the line? Or perhaps are they destined to watch playoffs from the sofa again?
Well, I hope to God it's not another one of those decision day, final day determinations of whether or not this team will make the playoffs. But I feel like we're just going to teeter right on that line because, like you said, you have teams like Nashville, you have Portland, Seattle, obviously LAFC. Throw Colorado in the mix too. They've just been reinforced with a lot of attacking power this offseason, and they just signed Josh Zardes, who obviously is a Galaxy alum, and with Columbus, he was able to put in the back of the old onion bag, and I think it's going to be a complete bloodbath in the West. Like I said, I think we'll just be teetering on that line, and hopefully it doesn't come down to decision day.
Yeah. I would almost, I don't know, this might sound crazy, but I would almost rather know a couple of games before that decision day whether we're in the playoffs or not, like safely, comfortably in the playoffs, or just flat out like, dude, listen, we're already eliminated, than to get to decision day yet again and have the Galaxy miss out right there at the very end. That almost hurts 10 times worse. So I would rather the Galaxy, if they're just flat out now making the playoffs this year, I'd rather us be mathematically eliminated like weeks before that, than rather get to that last day and just have your heart broken. Obviously, I want the Galaxy to make the playoffs, so don't misunderstand that. But I'm sure some other people feel the same way out there. But it's crazy, and it's going to be crazy. But we'll get into that. Without further ado, let's get into the meat of the sandwich. Casey, let's get into the section of the show where we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's do it, right?
Sir.
Let's do it. Let's dive a little bit deeper. Naturally, we start off with the good, like always. And this is probably going to be the easiest segment to cover here because we honestly didn't see a lot of what you would call good from the Galaxy out there on Saturday. That was just across the board with the offense, midfield, defense, goalkeeping. It was just kind of poop, right? But if we could point to some good things out there, we would have to, the scoreline didn't reflect this. The overall performance of the team, individual performances, didn't reflect this, but there were a little bit of hints of positives from our DPs here, right? And now I'm not excusing the DPs because I still feel like there's a lot of work to be done there with all three of them, a lot of underperforming, right? Especially in this game. But I did see a little bit of a hint of progression, right? Cabral should have had an assist on that Chicha header, right? That wasn't ruled as a goal, and they didn't even go to VAR, but we saw the different angle it was shown after the game. It wasn't shown during the broadcast, but there was a different video right from the line. That ball definitely went over, right? So that should have counted as a goal for Chicharito, and it should have been an assist, right, for Kevin Cabral. So that was a positive. We obviously saw Douglas Costa score that goal, that set piece goal, which was all credit to him. I don't think he had the best game on the night. I think there's still a lot of struggle there with Costa, but I have to give credit where credit is due. That was a really nice goal. We need more set piece goals like that. That's a positive sign for me. But like I said, overall, a very poor night for Cabral. Costa was underwhelming for me. He had his moments. He showed some good glimpses of, progression. Chicharito had a very quiet night yet again. It wasn't for lack of trying. The man was out there hustling hard, dropping it in the midfield, but it just wasn't there. But yeah, those are kind of like the goods that I could say. There was some progression on our DP front right there.
Yeah, and the set pieces, like you said, were looking a lot better. Like obviously the goal came from a Douglas Costa free kick. And there were only 2 short corners last night. So I guess that's some progress on that end because we're so used to seeing short corners every time we go to the flag. And it's gotten quite stale, and it's very predictable for teams to play against. And like you said, Costa had a great night last night. He was the highest rated player on the team. Goal.com had him as a 9.7 rating, which, again, was the highest on the Galaxy last night. He had 53 carries. responsible for a lot of the good ball movement into dangerous areas last night.
Yeah.
Efra was kind of nowhere to be seen. Raveloson wasn't very impressive. Delgado had great, passing last night, but Costa was obviously the most impressive on the attacking end of the ball. And he put up a total of 8 crosses for a team high last night as well.
Yeah.
So that's really all I have as far as the good goes.
Like I said, folks, short segment on the good. I'm sure we're going to have a lot more of the bad to talk about. Anything else to add to anything that you saw out there, Casey, that was good?
Yeah, Twizzle was there last night.
Twizzle was there. That was cool. It was great ambience at the stadium. We'll say that. And the weather was nice.
Yeah, nice warm night,
So let's do it. Let's talk now about the bad moments of this game. Casey, why don't you kick us off with this, dude?
Yeah, and we kind of harped on it last episode where we're talking about how our style of play has gotten stale and boring, and we're seeing against teams that like to play high pressure on a very high line, building out of the back just isn't working. High pressure from opposition's forward lines cause overwhelming pressure on our back four. And you saw it last night. There aren't enough players checking back to the ball to create passing options.
Yeah.
In the midfield, a lot of the times we'd get stuck behind pressure and would be stuck just knocking the ball between Williams and Koulibaly out to the wing, switching it over. And it was just stale and boring, like we've been seeing over the last few games. And the midfield as well. Raveloson, like I said, wasn't great on either side of the ball. Efrain had a really quiet night. Once again, we couldn't find ways to effectively progress the ball through the midfield in the middle of the field. And it just resulted in a lot of bad giveaways, telegraphing a lot of passes.
So many bad giveaways, man.
And there was just failure to cover a lot of the wide options. Tumasi specifically had tons of space in those opening 30 minutes of the game, and it was caused a lot by Gasper having to pinch in centrally to cover, either Ferrer or Areola, and then Tumasi just was in no man's land, acres of space with nobody like Raveloson or Araujo going back to Gasper able to cover those areas. So it just resulted in a lot of really quick counters on Dallas's end, and that's how we ultimately got burned by the burn. And there's a low receiving percentage to the front three, Cabral and Chicha. Costa obviously had, his moments, but Cabral and Chicha just didn't really see much of the ball last night at all.
Yeah.
Cabral wasn't very convincing last night either. He gets into good areas. He just can't do anything with it. He'll get the ball into his area, but just can never get a touch on it. And, he was just physically dominated and thrown around his entire time on the pitch. It's kind of a glaring issue this entire season. He just doesn't have the physicality to match the defenders he's up against in this league.
Yeah. I mean, he has the speed. We've seen it. It's like a weird, I think it's even more than just the physical. I think he's just scared of contact. He's scared of contact and he just lacks the hustle. I mean, we've talked about it a million times on this show. Anyone with eyes that has seen the Galaxy enough, they've seen Kevin Cabral play enough this season, can say the same thing. He's scared of the ball. He's scared of contact with other players. But I don't know, Casey, would you say that this is the worst game the Galaxy has played this season so far?
Easily. It's the worst game the Galaxy's played in multiple seasons. This is probably the worst game I've ever. The first 30 minutes were the worst 30 minutes of Galaxy soccer I've seen in the 2016 to 2022 era. I mean, the post Beckham, post Keane, post Donovan era, and that's saying something because we've seen some pretty terrible performances.
We've seen some blowouts
over the last 6 years.
Yeah.
And this was just embarrassing.
This was, I mean, this Ryan Raveloson on that giveaway, literally just gave it to the opposition. There was times where the Galaxy defense literally handed the ball to Dallas, just on the easiest passes, just handed the ball to Dallas, and Dallas punished us for it. And it could have been far worse than this We have to count our blessings that this was not a blowout, because it could have easily been a blowout. And this was 3 goals in 12 minutes. The Galaxy defense fell apart. They fell apart. They were
shambles.
Shambles. Yeah.
It just goes to show you how important Raheem Edwards is in that left back position. I mean, on both sides of the ball, he's great, and he hustles back on defense. He doesn't get outpaced like Gasper was getting outpaced last night. Yeah. And it definitely shows how much we really need him in that starting 11, and how much we lack depth in that position at left
Absolutely. That poor guy just got thrown. Listen, he had a poor night, horrible performance by Gaspar, but are we really surprised? I mean, this is a guy that was playing kind of like a fringe player for Minnesota United, not the greatest pedigree player. This is on most top contenders, like most top contending teams in MLS, this is like a rotational player at best. This is a bench guy. So why are we surprised that a guy that was rejected by Minnesota United is doing as poorly as he is? We can't excuse that bad giveaway by Araujo that led to that goal, right? Which literally just cut through our entire defense, and Chase got outpaced. Bond came out of his line. It's questionable. Some people will say he did the right thing. Some people will say, no, you should never chase the ball that far out as a goalkeeper. Yeah. So Bond definitely he's had better nights, far better nights than last night. But the defense, just inexcusable. We saw Williams give the ball away. We saw Sega give the ball away. There was that miscommunication moment that could have easily led to another goal. Where like Sega didn't really chase the ball, Williams didn't really chase the ball. And it could have been far worse. So it's just bad across the board, really bad across the board. If I were to pick one player that just played decently on the night, I would have a hard time doing that, just because it was just terrible across the board. I guess you could say maybe Dejan, when he came on, played 45 minutes. The defense looked a little more aggressive. There was a little more teeth to the offense when the substitutions started coming in. But we'll get into that. That's kind of part of my ugly, so we'll get into that. But for all the talk that we've had this season, we've heard it from other shows and pundits, right? Well, this season the Galaxy's greatest strength is their defense, and they've only allowed 7 goals all season. Well, now it's what, 10 goals, right? Yeah. So what do you think, Casey? Was it just smoke and mirrors? Was the Galaxy defense these first 10 games, was this smoke and mirrors, or is the Galaxy defense the real thing?
I think, well, it's a question of depth, and we just don't have that right now. I think Gasper was brought in as a reinforcement because of the fact that Jorge Villafani is out the rest of the season with an injury, and we really don't have anybody but Galaxy 2 players, nobody that has any MLS experience to fill in at that left back position.
Yeah.
And we really just lack depth across the board. Yeah. In those positions.
And it's a problem that we've dealt with for several seasons now, right? The Galaxy kind of spends really, really heavy in those starting 11, and then they just have no money for depth, right? And we've seen other teams that do it intelligently across the league. They know how to manage their money. They don't blow all their money on 1 or 2 players. We're talking non-DP players, right? Because DP salary doesn't matter. We could be paying Chicharito $100 million, and it really doesn't count against the salary cap, right? But that's a whole other conversation. It's terrible. Our depth is really not that good. But listen, all the bad stuff aside, let's jump straight into the ugly takes. And I'll start here with this. It seems that just about every single time we have seen this team become far more aggressive and dangerous during games is right after we make subs. And by subs, I mean we sub out Kevin Cabral, guys like Efrain Alvarez, and we sub in guys like Samuel Grandsir and Dejan, right? Which makes me wonder, and I'm not the only one that wonders this. This has been a constant topic of conversation on our Discord and the Reddit. Why exactly at this point does Greg Vanney, knowing this, right, that the team becomes far more dangerous with these guys on the field, with those guys off the field and these guys on the field, why continue to start those guys that aren't as threatening or as productive as starters, and then just start the guys that are more productive and more aggressive? I'm willing to bet at this point it has nothing to do with actual tactics. It's just, as we've talked about it on the show before, as our friend Matt says all the time, it's hubris, right? It's Vanny's ego refusing to admit defeat by benching his project player, by benching these guys that are his guys. He's like the captain of the Titanic, willing to sink with the ship for some sort of weird pride, some sort of false sense of honor. I don't know what it is, right? But it's kind of horrible to see that game after game. We know what's dangerous and we know what's not. We know what works and we know what doesn't, yet we do it every single time, game after game, you know? I don't know, Casey.
It's got to be a combination of, well, it's got to be one of two things. It's either his ego or it's the ego of the front office or somebody's barking orders, refusing to let Vanny allow to not start those players, like Cabral, for example. I know there's been cries all over the subreddit and the Discord about starting Jovelic and giving him more minutes because he's proven to be more deadly than Cabral can be up top. But it really is just kind of a big question mark as to why some of these roster decisions are made.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know, man. I guess we'll have to find out once the summer really kind of starts hitting us hard.
Yeah.
Whether or not we can adapt or whether or not it'll be kind of like the Titanic sinking and Greg Vanny being the captain sinking with the ship, right?
But these next 2 months are going to be very telling.
They'll be very telling, and we'll know. But what do you say, Casey? Do you have any uglies to add on?
I mean, my ugly was really just the back line. We touched on the pretty lackluster performances from Gaspar and how kind of non-existent Araujo was. Williams and Koulibaly were rather average. Williams, can be a little bit of a liability in his moving forward recklessly and not being able to get back. Dallas was obviously able to beat us very quickly on the counter yesterday. Gasper, of course, was a pretty big liability. Areola was just running circles around our back line, finding all sorts of dangerous areas. We showed them too much of the ball and played across passing lanes that were just flooded by Dallas players. It really just wasn't a good showing from our back four. And Bond really wasn't on last night. He had a pretty terrible game. He faced 4 shots against and he allowed 3 of them in to the back of the net. And, the blunder between him and Gasper for Dallas's third goal really was baffling to see.
Yeah.
A lot of Galaxy fans, myself included, were impressed with Bond's confidence off his line at the beginning of the season, but this was just complete overconfidence on Bond's part. He came way too far off his line to challenge Ferreira and then collides with Gasper, who was already tracking with Ferreira. Mm-hmm. I think the rule there is if you have a center back or one of the back four tracking with the forward who's coming on the attack, you don't come that far off your line. He was way outside the 18. He was almost to the midfield line, and it was just a completely unacceptable mistake. Boneheaded mistake from Bond.
And just like their lack of awareness, right? Who do you blame there? Was it Gaspar's lack of awareness? Was he just tracking the guy too hard? He didn't see Bond come out. Did Bond not see Gaspar? Did he just laser focus on the ball? They just collided with each other.
And I think there was maybe just a lack of communication there. Maybe Gaspar's not really used to some of the communication protocols or tactics. I don't really know what the deal was there, because both players should have really been able to see each other. The ball was kind of in clear view of all players involved. So it really just was a big, just boneheaded mistake.
Yeah. Well, it's not going to get easier for us. That's the bad news, right? Because we have a very, very tough schedule coming up this summer for the LA Galaxy. We have Minnesota on Thursday. That's a game in Minnesota, so we're traveling. And then on Monday, we have Houston at home. The following Thursday, just a couple of days after that, we have the U.S. Open Cup at home versus LAFC. I don't expect to see a lot of second team guys for this game. I expect to see, Vanny put a lot of the first team guys in there. And then on Sunday we have a game we have a game against Austin, another team that's tough. So it's going to be a tough schedule. It's going to be a tough schedule for us, and like you said, Casey, it's going to be very telling, right?
Very telling. Yeah, like you said, as we get into the summer months, the kind of the before the playoff rate starts getting really tight, and people start finding kind of their final positions in the table. We're gonna be really, really up against it, especially if we see any other players out with injury. It's really going to show our lack of depth, and we're just going to get exposed.
Well, we hope that Greg Vanny kind of really learns from this, because like you said, this was the worst game of the season. Usually this is a make or break moment for a lot of teams. You either snap out of it and you're like, okay, listen, things that we've been doing haven't worked. We have to readjust. And then it's like a complete game plan change, right? Or you don't adapt, you double down, and you just nosedive and you just fall flat on your face, right? So let's hope the Galaxy actually learns from this, fingers crossed, right? And we also have to hope the Galaxy makes some smart moves in the transfer window during the summer. So, but with that said, guys, I think we pretty much covered everything, right, Casey? We kept it pretty condensed, tight. We're always glad that you guys join us for these shows, whether you're listening or watching us on YouTube. And just a huge shout out to all you guys that have supported us still, right? So if you're watching this on Monday during your commute, you're at work, or if you're watching this later on during the week, again, we appreciate it. But from us here at the Galaxy Guy, my name's Chris Maldonado, my wonderful co-host, Casey Cagle, and Matt Granger, who's probably at home watching this right now, regretting that he wasn't here to talk about the Galaxy with us.
We miss you, Matt.
We missed you, dude. But yeah, we want to wish you guys a happy week, and hopefully next weekend we'll have some more positive things to talk about. So you guys have yourselves a good rest of your week. See you guys.